Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with, Carlo Maria Giulini, the box remastered, 60 CDs containing the complete studio recordings on Columbia, HMV, Pathé, and Electrola. I didn't even know there were any on Columbia and Pathé and Electrola. Well, I'll put the bright side on it. At least they don't claim that these were all on Erato, which is what Warner tends to be doing. I mean, what is this actually on? No, it's just Warner Classics. Amazing. So HD remastering from original tapes by Art and Son Studio. All recordings newly remastered, except CDs 16 through 19 remastered in 2022, and CDs 52 and 56 through 55 through 56 remastered in 2020. All right, good enough. Do they sound better? Marginally. You know, EMI's remasterings, or Warner's remasterings, have a somewhat troubled history. I remember vividly looking forward to getting the remastered Samson and Delilah, which came out on like gold from its original CD incarnation. It sounded vastly worse. Sometimes tapes deteriorate. Sometimes the process doesn't seem to help the original recordings. The first thing I did when I got this thing a few weeks ago was check out the Verdi Requiem, because that was the one that always annoyed everybody. Why? Because, well, first of all, there was the balance issue. You know, the fact that the Dies Irae, the trombones kind of obliterate the entry of the chorus, which is okay. I mean, you know, we don't need to hear them that badly, as long as it's exciting enough, and it is. But when they're going, Dies, you know how it goes, right? So there is definitely more clarity to the sound, more presence to those thwacks on the bass drum. Yay! But that same distortion and print through when the chorus is screaming at top volume is still there. And I don't think there's anything you can do about it. It's on the original master tape. So the bottom line is, yes, remastering has helped. But if there were issues previously, they are likely still there. That's all I have to say about the remastering. The performances, well, this is fun because, hopefully this will be Warner's final shot with Giulini putting all this together. Originally, there were a bunch of separate boxes. Giulini was one of those guys who got separate boxes. You know, Universal had Giulini in America, Giulini in Chicago, Giulini in, it's like Iphigenia in Brooklyn, Iphigenia in Detroit, Iphigenia in wherever Iphigenia was. It was like that. Well, EMI did the same thing. They had Giulini in London, and then they had Giulini in Chicago. Giulini was in Chicago for both labels. Then they had the concerto recordings, which were his weakest things, and still are. But we're going to get to that. Let's go through this, all 60 fun-filled CDs, if I can get them out of the box here. Okay, there we go. It goes like this. It slides in sideways, you see. And then the CDs are in there. So actually, it's pretty sturdy, and at least it's not like one of those Universal things where, like you pick it up and the bottom drops out of it with all the CDs. CD1. Where do we get CD1? First, you have the bookie. We have to look at the little bookie. Here is El Bucco. That's got, pictures galore. Like you really want to look at pictures of the guy. Who cares? And then essays. And pictures and an index of works in the back, but no separate track listing. Gentlemen of the Podium, apparently. And there are a couple essays here. What's the other essay? There's a German thing. Well, Sous l'Empire de Dieu, under the Empire of God. I guess they translate differently depending on who's doing them. All right, fine. So it's very interesting. For the English, he was a gentleman. For the French, it was the Empire of God. I hesitate to see what the Germans called him. Let's see. There's something here. Musizieren als Sinnfrage. Okay. What's a Sinnfrage? My German is, I'm only a German historian. I really should know that. But, when you haven't done it in a while, let's see. Sinnfrage. German translation for Sinnfrage. Feminine noun, question of the meaning or purpose of life. Oh, that's so German. Okay. That's really exciting. Let's look at Langenscheidt and see what they say. Do I have to agree? Yes. Okay. Examples. To ask what is the meaning or purpose of life. Oh my God. Questioning of the meaning. Okay, I get it. Fine. I wish I hadn't bothered. So there you have it. Yes. Music making as questioning the meaning of life. So it's actually fascinating, isn't it? You have sort of European history in a nutshell. Right here, European characteristics. For the English, he was a gentleman. For the French, it was the empire of God. For the Germans, it was questioning the meaning of life. I could stop right now. I think that is hilarious. I really do. It's just amazing that these things still exist. Anyway, fine. Europe. What can you do? Can't live with them, can't live without them. So, let's take the first chunk and see what we have it here. It begins with Beethoven. Beethoven 6, Pastoral, Egmont Overture, New Philarmonia Orchestra. Giulini's Beethoven is largely beautiful, but sometimes a little sleepy, possibly. It's lyrical. He doesn't go for the Sturm und Drang most of the time. And although he could have, that Verdi Requiem has plenty of Sturm und Drang, but no, his Beethoven is like that. And it's very beautiful of its kind. It's a beautiful pastoral symphony. It is. Oh, I remember this one, Beethoven 7th, the Chicago. It's really good. It helps that he has Chicago. There's no question about it, because their slightly more rambunctious attitude towards tone production, is helpful. And then we have
the 9th.
Yes, a lyrical performance. Number 8's here too, which is fine. But it was never regarded as one of the most compelling performances of that symphony. I think the reason is just because it's Giulini. He just doesn't go for roughness, and Beethoven, that's an element of his character. It really is. Beethoven, Piano Concerto number 3 with Hans Richter Hasser and the Philarmonia. Oh boy, I haven't heard that in a while. That's not all that exciting. And then, we have the famous Perlman Beethoven Violin Concerto, which is knockout reference recording for that work. Fabulous. Beethoven's Mass in C. Giulini did beautiful, beautiful sacred choral music. He really did. He managed to capture both the drama of the music, but also its religiosity without any sort of special pleading or sanctimoniousness. Really, it was deeply felt and lovely. The Missa Solemnis. Well, that was always very good too. So that's fun. And we have wonderful soloists here: Heather Harper, Janet Baker, Robert Tier, and Hans Soten. It was always competing with Klemperer's rather more gaunt performance, and it's kind of like, put it this way, it achieves the sort of religious loftiness that Karajan always aspired to, but without the oily slickness and religiosity. That's kind of what Giulini did, which is really cool. Berlioz, Romeo and Juliet orchestral excerpts from Chicago. Well, that was fun. Just the orchestral music and plenty of it. Nicely done. Beethoven, Boccherini, Symphony in C minor, Overture in D major, and Haydn's Surprise Symphony. Haven't heard this in a while. I put this on I guess now it's about 2 weeks ago. I was very pleasantly surprised by how enjoyable the whole thing was. There's a lot to be said for people who understand tunes and how to conduct them and how to phrase things. Janos Starker, the Haydn Cello Concerto, which was the Haydn Cello Concerto back in the day. at number 2 in D major. Number 1 had just been rediscovered in the 50s. And the Boccherini Cello Concerto number 9. These are all in the Boccherini particularly in the revised, updated versions. They're kind of soft and flabby. I mean, Haydn and Boccherini both have gotten a major makeover from the period instrument folks, and it has been all to the good. And I mean, the lack of string vibrato is horrible, but the approach to tempo and accent and rhythm and all that's really perked up the music. So that's great. Brahms Symphony number 1, absolutely lovely, absolutely beautiful. Brahms Symphony number 2, equally lovely. Brahms Symphony number 3 with a tragic overture. Very, very beautiful. It's very interesting to compare this to his later Vienna recording where everything is slow and sluggish, except for the finale of the third, which is really fast and exciting. Much quicker than this, actually. But these are good performances. They really are. All of his Brahms is beautiful. Then we have Brahms, what's this one? Symphony number 4. And then with the cover of Brahms Symphony number 4, we get it twice, of course, because he did the 4th with the Philarmonia and then again in Chicago. And I have to say, I mean, looking at this, the Chicago performance is, slightly tauter in the first movement, but a little broader in the final Passacaglia. They're both very, very beautiful performances. I just totally forgot that there were 2/4. And I was just going through this box listening to it. But somehow that slipped my mind after diddling both performances. Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, Piano Concerto number 1 with Alexis Weissenberg. I think that, frankly, the first Piano Concerto accompaniment was the province of George Sell more than Giulini, because it just begins with that onslaught. And and Giulini's performances tend to be on the lyrical side, and not quite fiery enough in the first movement, but they're beautiful things here. And of course, Weissenberg is a hack and burn pianist, so the contrast is kind of fun to hear. And then he did it again with Claudio Rao, numbers 1 and number 2. These are probably his best concerto recordings overall, because he has a Rao on hand, and the two of them are actually quite simpatico. A Rao with his beautiful plush tone, and Giulini with his, intensely lyrical approach. And it's not everybody's idea of the fire and excitement that Brahms brings to, both concerti and spots, but they're very well thought out performances. The Violin Concerto with Perlman, it's also a lovely recording. Britain, the 4C interludes from Peter Grimes and the Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra. One of Giulini's rare forays into this kind of repertoire. And it's always interesting when he does, not the usual Germanic standards, because he's really good at it. I mean, he's really, really good at it. These are beautiful performances. They're exciting. They were eclipsed later on by Andre Previn's London Symphony performances. These are almost all with the Philarmonia. All of these recordings are the new Philarmonia. And as a result of that, a lot of Giulini's discography and, sort of fun repertoire, if you want to call it that, just was deleted or forgotten. But it was very good. Bruckner 2 with the Wiener Symphoniker. Oh, this is a snooze. Some people swear by it. No. It really, really is in the outer movements, which are theoretically quick. It's really dull. I'm sorry. I tried. I heard this was issued on Testament for a while, and people told me, well, it's the Giulini, it's the Bruckner 2, it's like special. No, it's not special. And the Vienna Symphony is nothing special. He conducted them a lot. Remember, he was on DG with the Beethoven Concerti with Michelangelo, so that didn't matter. Bruckner 9 with Chicago. Oh, this is marvelous. It's exciting and it's powerful and it's granitic and it does all the Bruckner things Bruckner should do. There's some weird fillip at the very end of the first movement, like in the horn parts or something, but no one cares. It sounds just great. Cherubini Requiem in C minor. Oh, this is good to have. A very interesting contrast to Riccardo Muti's, sort of tight-lipped, really fast and furious version. Totally different approach. And also to Toscanini's. So that's fun. And really, when this came out, there really only was Toscanini, so that's great. Debussy, La Mer and Nocturnes. Oh, this is one of his great recordings. It was always a great recording. Beautiful, sensual, fabulous. And he recorded this stuff over and over again. You know, Giulini had a limited repertoire and he recorded it for every label he worked with, and usually slower each time. And this is his best La Mer, hands down. It's really one of the great ones. Devorjac 7. Yes, he did do some Devorjac, and quite beautifully. It's a very good Devorjac 7. It has none of the clunkiness that other performances tend to have. And it's very well played. So that's with the London Phil. And also with the Philarmonia, he did the 8th and the Scherzo Capriccioso. Symphony number 8 on the back, Symphony number 4 on the front. Because back in the day, this was, 1962, it was still known as the 4th, which is really kind of interesting. And Scherzo Capriccioso, well, it could be a little zippier, but it's still a fine performance. But the 8th is always was something he did beautifully. His Chicago remake was also gorgeous, and he manages to take the finale slower than usual, but have it sound good, which is, really kind of cool. New World Symphony with the Carnival Overture. Yeah, what could be wrong? I mean, come on, it's lovely. Rostropovich, Dvorak Cello Concerto, and the Saint-Saëns Cello Concerto number 1. This is Rostropovich's dullest recording of the Dvorak, and it's all Giulini's fault. Sorry, he really should have just developed a little more Slavic fire in his belly for this performance. It's not terrible, but when you can compare it to all of the other Rostropovich recordings of the Dvorak Cello Concerto, you realize that this one is not going to win any major awards. Giulini conducts Love the Magician with Victoria de los Angeles. Love the Magician, yes. El Amor Brujo, yay! With Victoria de los Angeles. It's a very clean, very beautiful performance. It is not down and dirty and flamenco-like and canto hondo-ish and all that stuff. But it's lovely for what it is. The Rhapsody Espagnole was a Giulini showpiece. He always did it really, really well. And the Pavane for a Dead Princess sounds Pavane-like and dead. No, it's fine. Then we've got Three-Cornered Hat, Dances. Another lovely performance. This was, again, EMI had Rafael Frubeck de Burgos doing all this stuff too. And perhaps with a little bit more authentic snap. And Ravel's Alborada del Gracioso and Daphnis and Chloe Suite number 2 with the Philarmonia. Still, the performances hold up quite well, I think. I really do. Franck, Symphony in D minor, and Psyché et Eros, a bit of it, a piece of it. The Franck D minor was a Giulini specialty, actually, in days when the Franck D minor was certainly not anybody's specialty, not anything that anyone cared about. And his remake for Sony was a snooze. Oh, it was so slow and heavy and thick. And this is just infinitely superior. Is it one of the great Franck D minors? I still don't think so. I still think he's a little bit just doesn't go crazy enough in the finale, but still, it's very good. Gluck, Iphigenia, yeah, on Tauri, this is fun, with Patricia Newey and Leopold Simoneau and people like that, with the Paris Conservatory Orchestra. God, it's been 1,000 years since this has been out, and anybody has cared, but yeah, good stuff, fun to have, really. Really, really interesting. That was on Pathé. That was a Pathé Marconi, EMI Pathé Marconi, because it was recorded in France. Then we get, Mahler 1 with the Chicago Symphony, a measured but very powerful Mahler 1. Mozart Concertos 9 and 21 with Alexis Weissenberg and the Vienna Symphony. I don't really care about that. It doesn't do it for me. Mozart Requiem. Ha-ha! Gorgeous, fabulous, with amazing soloists. Helen Donath, Crystal Ludwig, Robert Tier, Robert Lloyd, Philarmonia Chorus and Orchestra. It's one of the great Mozart Requiems, as all of you told me loudly when I didn't mention it in my Mozart Requiem survey. No, it's very good. Or did I? I don't even remember. Okay, Don Giovanni. Oh, the Mozart stuff. Well, these are iconic. Vector, Sutherland, Tadai, Frick, Schwarzkopf, Alva, Cappuccini, Schutti, Philarmonia, Don Giovanni, one of the greats. Marriage of Figaro, another one of the greats, with Vector, Schwarzkopf, Kozuto, Tadai, Anamafo, and people like that. Absolutely marvelous. Wonderful, beautiful stuff. And so his Mozart is essential, but we all knew that. And you've got, oh, this is so cute, with the Piccolo Scala, Pergolesi's La Serva Padrona. Delightful. Listen, all of Giulini's opera stuff you got to hear. Whether the singing is up to snuff always or not, I mean, it mostly is. And these are just fantastic performances of a great opera conductor, and a guy who really understood how to make the Italian tradition sound not vulgar. I mean, the vulgarity is part of the fun. Let's not kid ourselves. But Giulini didn't have a shred of that in him, and it's wonderful to hear his elegance and dramatic instinct, because at this point he really still had it. So that's really great. So yes, who's singing this? Did they tell us? Oh, Rosanna Cartieri, sure, and Nicola Rossi, Lemeni, and those people. So that's delightful to have. Rossini Overtures with the Philarmonia, another terrific disc. They were great. Rossini and Verdi Overtures, which is part of the previous terrific disc. It's absolutely great. We're up to CD 45, The Italian Woman in Algiers. Boy, they make these things difficult to read because they don't give you a track listing. So that means you have to have your magnifying glass out here. There we go. Yes, with, let's see, Mario Petri, Graziella Sciuti, I like her. Mafalda Massini, Enrico Campi, Cesare Valetti, Giulietta Simeonato, and Marcello Cortis, in association with the Orchestra della Scala, Teatro Scala thing in Milano. So that's fun. And last pile, last 15 CDs, that was CD 46. Janos Starker, Schumann, and Saint-Saëns #1. Well, it's better than the Rostropovich one, I have to say. It's also with the Philarmonia and the Schumann Cello Concerto, which just bores me to tears. And I don't care who plays it. Schubert, Unfinished Symphony, Brahms Variations on a Theme by Haydn. Lovely. Absolutely lovely. The Unfinished is really beautiful. I mean, he always did a gorgeous Unfinished, all 400 times that he did it. And it's lovely because there's one on Sony and there's one on TG in Chicago, and there's this one. His first, as usual, his first recordings are just that much more zippy and spontaneous and a little bit more youthful. They have more fire in them, which is wonderful. Schumann's Rhenish and Manfred. I love his Los Angeles Rhenish Symphony, which is slower than this, granted, but he uses the Mahler orchestration, some of it, not all of it, but some of it, and it's really terrific. It's a work he obviously felt strongly about. Stravinsky, the Suite from Petrushka. No one does the Suite. Well, everyone used to do the Suite. He did the Suite. Ormandy did the Suite. I like the Suite because you don't have to hear that lousy ending where, you know, who cares? So that's fun. It ends with a bang. And the Firebird Suite, also, it was Chicago. These are exciting. I mean, he did those really well. Then we've got the Firebird Suite again. Yes, the Firebird Suite and Mother Goose and Jeux d'Enfant with the Philarmonia. Also stuff he did well. So you got to record some of these things twice. You know, and they're exciting. I mean, the Chicago Firebird's a little better than the Philarmonia one, but Ravel's Mother Goose was something he always did well. It was one of his signature pieces, especially the Fairy Garden, which is best in his Sony Concertgebouw recording, which is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in my life. I mean, you play it and you cry. It's incredible. This is not quite that, but it's still enormously compelling. Tchaikovsky, Little Russian, and Mussorgsky, Night on Bald Mountain. Why not? Why not? Actually, it's not one of his more compelling discs, but the Patatique here, ooh, baby, this is yummy. And it's tracked. The first movement has 4 tracks, and the finale has 2 tracks. I don't understand why they needed to do that, but yeah, one of the great Patatiques. It has always been one of the great Patatiques. Romeo and Juliet, Francesca da Rimini. You wouldn't think You just wouldn't think because, he's such a nice guy, but he really does a good Francesca. He really does. It's really exciting. Absolutely wonderful. And you get a bonus, Symphony Number 5 excerpts of working sessions, where you get to hear how gentlemanly he is. And it's really quite a lot of stuff here. It's 13 to 20, it's about half an hour's worth of stuff. So that's pretty cool. It really is. And the Romeo and Juliet's really good too. I mean, he really, really got Tchaikovsky back in the day. Verdi, 4 Sacred Pieces. Well, we just talked about that. This was the coupling to the Requiem. And they're wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And the Requiem is a magnificent performance. But like I said, it suffers from some, print through thingy problems. Don Carlo, 3 discs of it. This is the great Don Carlo. It really is. I mean, there was the Schulte with Tebaldi and those people, but I think this was the one. It really is an incredible performance. Beautiful. And it was with, of course, Placido Domingo, Montserrat Caballé, Rogero Raimondi, Shirley Verrett, Cheryl Milnes, and Giovanni Foiani and Simon Estes. And it's with Covent Garden. Yes, I think so. Because I can't see it again. But yeah, Don Carlo is amazing. One of his great Verdi recordings. And Vivaldi, I Concerti della Stagione. Oh, the 4 Seasons. With Manu Parikian, who was the concertmaster of the Philarmonia at the time. And it's nice, and it's sweet, and it's charming. And there's some other things in here, too. We have, what is this? Yes, the mono version, original release. And the test recording in stereo. That's disc 60. So there you go, which does not include all of Winter. You only get a bit of the rehearsal, and you get all the other concerti. So yes, that's the beginning of Giulini, believe it or not, doing the 4 Seasons for EMI. That's it. That's the Giulini box. Now I have to figure out how to put it back together. Let's do this. Wait a minute. No, it doesn't go that way. It goes this way. There we go. Let's face it. It's kind of always amazing to see a box like this when you realize you're holding in your hands a great musician's life, his career in music. And the nice thing about having all this clumped together is that, Giulini later became, highly respected, of course, but his constant repetition of the same repertoire done in a somewhat, less interesting way as often as not. That doesn't mean his later stuff didn't have magnificent moments. It did, and quite a few. I mean, he was always a great musician. But to have all of his first recordings back when he was really a fresh new face on the scene is really important. And it rounds out, reestablishes, I think, the excitement and the beauty and the seriousness that characterized all of his music making. The lyricism, the spirituality, it's all in here. It's all in here. And so I don't need to recommend this, I hope, to those of you who already, know who he is. For those of you who don't, you're in for a treat. There's really, really fine stuff in here, and plenty of it. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and take care.